Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we are opening up a can of worms today. In fact, I'm probably going to get in a lot of trouble for this episode, but, well, I don't care, actually, I'll be honest. Because we need to set the record straight. We need to really iron out with a scorched earth hot iron and straighten out those wrinkles here in the Formula One world. Because today we're going to talk about Max Verstappen. Now, I'm going to try and be very fair here as well. And what I want to say, guys, is that Max Verstappen, first of all, is not. In fact, I would not even put him in the top 100 drivers of all time. Now, you could challenge me on that part, right? Maybe he's in the top 100, like 80s, 90s, maybe. But I haven't thought about it that much. But the way people talk about that Max Verstappen is the greatest of all time, or he's one of the greatest of all time, is sniffing glue in the car park, or you're taking drugs, or you're drunk off your ass, or your knowledge of Formula One is just kind of blindsided. And by the way, I mean that in a nice way, all right? Honestly. Because there is people out there who have been in the racing world that will still try and convince you of a lie. Now, they're the ones that are sniffing glue in the car park. Now, I get it, lads. If I was talking about tennis, Peter doesn't have a clue about tennis, right? Now, if I go around, now, I think Roger Federer is the greatest of all time. But if I walked into Wimbledon now and I walked into the bar and somebody said to me, Peter, you don't know what you're talking about, I'm like, you know what, lads? You're right. I actually don't. But I do know about racing, lads. And, you know, I gotta say, some people might think I'm bitter talking about this episode. Absolutely not. This is that when people say that the likes of Hamilton or Verstappen or Vettel are the greatest of all time, that's almost like a slap in the face to people that are in the racing world. It's almost like somebody having a go off your mother or your father and you're going to jump in and defend them. That's really what this is. Honestly, I mean, some of us racing drivers can take this that personally and bad, right? Now, at the same time, if you're in a bar standing there and somebody says it, you're like, grand, whatever. But we just got to set the record straight here, lads. We have to do it. Now, let's get right in to the shit.
Walsh running the Irish green, and look at the move he's making down to the inside.
Moves to the front. What a move from fifth all the way to the lead in lap one.
Walsh takes win number 2.
Peter. Walsh. Now, before I do go on and on and on here, lads, let me put the record straight first. Max Verstappen is a brilliant driver. You've just heard me say it. This is not me spitting on him. He is brilliant. I mean, even what he did last year, it's 2026 now, but what he did in 2024 when he started in 17th in Brazil in a wet condition track and he won the race. That was amazing. That was insane how good it was. So you heard me right now. He is brilliant. Here's where we cut to the chase, though. When you're talking about the greats now of all time, that's a different conversation completely, ladies and gentlemen. All right? And we're going to talk about this. We're going to get into this. But I'm just setting the bar here. We don't go over the line into the GOAT line category where he's right up on top of the rev limiter on the line, but he doesn't flip over into the fence into the GOAT category. Let's get into it, shall we? To get to Formula One, as Lance Stroll actually even said only a few years ago in an interview, and the guy's right. If anybody knows the racing world, they know he's right on this one. Lance Stroll said that it is pretty much impossible to get to Formula One as a driver. And it really is, lads. It really, truly is. And if you know someone, apart from me, if you know someone out there in the racing world, ask them that scenario. If they really know the racing world and how much it costs, they'll tell you. There's no rocket science here. There's no rocket science here. And yes, you've got to be bloody quick. Yes, you've got to be consistently quick. But you also have got to bring extra to the table. You've either got to bring money to the table or you got to bring sponsorship, or a combination of both. If you were if your family is a wealthy family, great, and then if you're bringing sponsorship, even better. Because at the end of the day, Formula One is a business. If, let's say, Peter signs up tomorrow for Formula One, and he's got 10 million followers on Instagram, and he's got a massive fan base, you're selling t-shirts, hats, blah, blah, whatever, and all of a sudden I go into the Red Bull team. Now, Red Bull are going to be very, very excited because they're going to get a lot of attention. A lot of investors are going to be very attentive with Peter Walsh coming on board because he's such a big character now. And chances are they're going to sell a lot of Red Bull t-shirts with Peter's name, or sorry, his number on the baseball cap, the t-shirt, the watch, the pants, the underwear, the lube, whatever you want to call it. It's all positive. Very, very positive. And you know, the thing, guys, is that yes, speed is part of the entry ticket to Formula One. But if speed alone decided who the greatest drivers of all time were, the junior categories would be filled with future legends and the greats of all time. And history tells us that that simply isn't true. It is not. And every era has fast drivers. Every era has mind-blowingly fast drivers. Every grid has someone who can light up a sector. And every season has someone who looks unbeatable when everything is aligned. And my favourite of all time is Ayrton Senna, and I truly believe he is the GOAT. But even Senna had times where the car was just so good that no one was coming near him. He even had that advantage. Now, like, this is where Max Verstappen conversation completely goes off the rails. Because, like, I think the modern fan sees domination, confuses it with transcendence. They'll see wins and think legacy. They see confidence and assume invincibility. And again, back to my example about tennis, right? I don't know much about tennis. And if I said Roger Federer, you know, I'd see a YouTube highlight video and think, oh my God, he's unbelievable, the greatest of all time. But if somebody in the tennis world sat down with me and they said to me, no, Peter, you don't have a clue? Yep, hat in hand, no problem, sir. My apologies. And that's it. You know? Now here's the uncomfortable truth about Max Verstappen here, lads. He's never been forced to coexist in the Red Bull team with another driver. He did with Ricciardo for a little while. But at that stage, they were grooming Max Verstappen. They wanted him to get up to speed. In fact, they wanted... No, in fact, I'll go even better. They needed a sparring partner for Max Verstappen to get sharper and sharper and sharper and sharper. And hey, guess what happens? Max Verstappen gets quick. Daniel Ricciardo's gone from the team. Now, isn't that weird? Now, Ricciardo was right there with them at the start, right? Ricciardo had the pace. He definitely did. But keep that on ice. We'll come back to that. But from the moment Red Bull decided he was the guy, the environment stopped being competitive and it started being protective. That's the key. It was protective. Wrap him with cotton wool and bloody foam wrap and make sure our boy does not get harmed. And I want to be very clear here because people love misquoting this. This is not cheating. It's not corruption. It's not illegal. So I'm even batting for Max Verstappen here on this one. Having the number one driver and giving him everything, all of the equipment, and then giving the number two guy the scraps. This happens in every single team in the world. It happens in karting, it happens in Formula 4, 3, 2, and Formula 1. Lads, let's look at let's flash back, and this ties into Max Verstappen here, because Max Verstappen had the very similar position that Lewis Hamilton had at Mercedes. Look at Hamilton. He goes to Mercedes. In 6 years, he wins the championship with in 6 years at Mercedes, he wins 5 out of the 6 years world championships. First of all, it's incredible. It's brilliant, right? It's an amazing result for him. But Nico Rosberg was the only guy to beat him, and Nico Rosberg was in the other Mercedes car. Now, all of a sudden, Lewis Hamilton, let's rewind back to those days when Hamilton was dominating at Mercedes. Everybody was going on that he was the greatest of all time. Well, hold on a second now, lads. Because before that, they had this person and that person, right? So Hamilton was the greatest of all time. And then when Hamilton retires and goes to Ferrari and Max Verstappen starts winning, now they're flipping it to now, oh, Max Verstappen's actually the greatest of all time. Really? So is it just such a coincidence that just the very next guy after Hamilton is the greatest of all time? In other words, Verstappen didn't compete before Hamilton, but Verstappen is still the greatest of all time. Do you know what I mean? It's too much of it's too convenient almost. Really, lads? Which is it now? Which one is it? Now, excuse me, guys, sorry. Now let's look at Lewis Hamilton. Dominating. Apparently the greatest of all time. Guess what happens? Well, we all know. The budget cap comes in. He's nowhere in Mercedes. He decides to jump ship, go to Ferrari, bang, done. Okay, he does it. He's nowhere. Now, there's people writing him off. Now, by the way, just to show you how fair I am, lads, I am not a Lewis Hamilton fan, but even I'm going to bat for him and defend him on this one. Because I could easily trash him right now and join the bandwagon, right? Join the pity party of, oh, Hamilton's no good, blah, 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 all that bollocks, right? Hamilton is brilliant. He's brilliant. He's just not in the GOAT category. Now, all of a sudden, when Hamilton went from Mercedes, he was the GOAT, he was the greatest of all time, he was dominating the bad couple of years, fine, but then he goes to Ferrari. Now people are saying, in fact, even in his last couple of years at Mercedes when things weren't going well, they were saying he's getting too old. He's over the hill. The 2021 title showdown between him and Verstappen, that just killed him. It destroyed him. Burnt him out. That is complete and utter bollocks, lads. Honestly. There's so many articles out there that because it's a big national paper or a radio station, people automatically assume that they're speaking correct. Total and utter horse crap. Hamilton has not lost it. Michael Schumacher put his Mercedes on pole position in Monaco in his 40s. Now, lads, yeah, he got there was something happened where he got disqualified or he got a 5 grid pace penalty. So I think, as far as I remember, he was put back to 6, right? But he did actually cross the line quickest, but something happened and he got pushed back. He was in his 40s. Now, if Lewis Hamilton is the greatest of all time, as everybody says, well, surely he would have done a better job than Michael Schumacher in his 40s, right? So you have Schumacher in his 40s, Hamilton in his 40s. Now, if Hamilton is the greatest of all time, as they say, well, then surely the 40-year-old Schumacher and the 40-year-old Hamilton's going to have the edge because he's the greatest of all time, right? You know what I mean? Now Hamilton, he's at Ferrari. He's had a disastrous season last year in 2025. He has what? He has the one race win, the sprint race win, I think. Was it China? Sorry, no, lads, of a brain fart. But he had that one win. And he was nowhere for the rest of the season. No one's gone on that he's the greatest of all time now. Why? You could still say, well, oh, look, lads, you know, the GOAT, he's got a bit too old now, but hey, lads, he's the man, he's the GOAT. No, everybody's now saying Max Verstappen's the GOAT now. What? And people recoil at the word politics like it's an insult. It isn't an insult. Politics exists everywhere. Wherever we are, all of us. In fact, anybody that's watching or listening, I guarantee you've got some type of politics in your life, whether it's your family or your friends or your workplace, especially a workplace, that's a major big one, or your sport that you're working on, or maybe it's both your sport and your workplace. You know, like anyone who denies it is just not maybe thinking it through. And if politics exists in a minimum wage job, let's say, guys, there's so many minimum wage jobs out there that the politics is insane, right? You've got, let's say, the butcher's market down the road, okay? In fact, I even knew this one, or heard about this one guy. He was working in a butcher's, right? minimum wage job, nothing wrong with it, obviously. He's working away, but he was miserable in the job. Some other guy comes along, licks the manager's ass, plays this and that, plays the other guy off him, and the other guy gets promoted. Now, do you think that's politics? Yeah, it is. Different way, shape or form politics than Formula 1, but it's still politics. Now, I've no doubt that anybody that's listened here, you've got royally screwed over at some stage in your life, because let's be honest, everyone in life gets royally screwed over by someone in their life. You know what I mean? So it all exists. Now, if politics can happen at a minimum wage job, working in a butcher's or a flower shop or a call center, if politics can exist there, now why wouldn't it exist in Formula 1 when there's hundreds of millions of dollars at stake? You've got investors and sponsors that if you've got one bad race, that they could pull the plug and all of a sudden your team ain't going to Austria anymore, lads, because you got to pack your bags and we're all fired. We're all done. You think that there could be quite an element of politics? That's for anybody, watching here today or listening. I'm not having to go off anybody here. I'm genuinely not, honestly. If I'm coming across like that, well, I do apologize because I don't want to come across like that. If I am, by the way. But I just, it does annoy me that, yeah, like, there's been so many people that I've met over the last few years, lads, that they know that they either listened to my podcast or they've listened to it once and they don't like me and they're, yeah, whatever. Now, I've had people approach me and they say, no, man, no, Hamilton's the greatest of all time. And then you can almost feel them though, oh, okay. And then here's the thing. I don't get annoyed with that. Honestly, that does not bother me. Because as long as I can have a conversation with the person afterwards, right? And by the way, this isn't me trying to tell them, oh, actually, I'm right and you're wrong. Like I'd even settle for, like, what I want is that if you could sit there with somebody, now they say something that you don't agree with, at least if they hear you out, take it on board, and then go, all right, Peter, okay, you're right. I think you are right. Or, Peter, you know what, man, I don't know. Look, sorry, but, I don't agree with you, but I don't know, you've got some good points. Right? Maybe I'll think about it. Or they might go, Peter, honestly, I don't think you're right, man. Look, no, you know what? You're not right, man. I got to admit, you're going to make me think. And look, if I ever change my mind, I'll let you know. Or, see what you think. Or let me see what you think. Or I'll come back with something else. Like, either way, I'd be okay with that. But it's the people that steamroll over you. You could show them the greatest proof the world's ever seen, and they still will not look at you and go, no, whatever, man, whatever. Max Verstappen's the best in the world. You don't have a clue what you're talking about. You're like, wow. I even had people saying that I don't have a clue what I'm talking about. Lads, I've grown up around the racing world, right? It doesn't mean I know everything about the racing world. No, but I've got a fair knowledge of how the racing world works, right? But you still have people saying that you don't have a clue what you're talking about. Now, I've no doubt that other people out there that listen to this or watching this, that you actually know what I'm talking about. You've had people in your life say this to you. I mean, it's amazing, And if I was proven wrong, by the way, I've called that out loads of times. I've assumed something on the podcast of Formula 1, and I've said, yeah, no, it's no way, it's not that way, lads. And I end up being wrong. And I'm like, lads, my apologies. I got that wrong the other day. Put my hands in the air. There's no problem, like. But it's the pig-headedness. They just will not, under any circumstances, let in that if their favourite guy is not the greatest of all time now, well, then all of a sudden they, what? Like, well, I don't get it. I genuinely don't get it. Are these people actually losing sleep at night? Do they invest their whole ego around that Hamilton's the greatest of all time, and if a crack in the armour comes, the sunlight gets through and what, they melt like an ice cream in the desert? Is this what we're talking about here? I mean, are people's egos that bloody fragile. I mean, I talk about this a lot in my dating podcast, guys, if you've heard them before, but ego and the fragileness. But it does go to show that this stuff happens. Okay, so we've gone off the track a little bit here, lads, but let's get back onto the main track here. Back to Verstappen. Now, let's talk about teammates that Verstappen has had. Because this is where the story really does open up, just force the door open a lot more here. And Pierre Gasly, guys, and you'll see this in Netflix, and you might have seen it already. I've said this in my podcast before as well, is that in Netflix, I think it's season 2, where Pierre Gasly joins the Red Bull team. He joins at the start of the year. He's Max Verstappen's teammate. And he does 10 races, and he's gone. Alex Albon steps in, takes over from him midway through the season, struggles in comparison to Max, right? Alex Albon didn't do much anyway. And the thing is, at this stage, you'd say to yourself, right, now, really, a Formula 1 team or any racing team gets rid of a driver halfway through a season? Now, lads, in all my racing days, and in fact, even after my racing days, I don't think I actually ever saw it once. Now, I could be wrong on that, but I honestly don't think I've ever in my life seen a racing driver get replaced halfway through a season. It's just not heard of. It's not this isn't, what is it, baseball, that you get transferred or whatever mid-season or quite away. This doesn't happen. And then the guy gets booted out because apparently he wasn't, quote, performing, and yet they bring in Alex Albon. I think Alex Albon and himself actually had the same highest position that they had. I think it was like a 4th. So Alex Albon didn't outdo him, not at all. Pierre Gasly had a little bit of bad luck as well when he was with Verstappen. But then you had the team coming on the team radio saying, come on, Pierre, this is not good enough. This is not good enough. What the... Lads, I'm telling you now, if you hear that as a racing driver, you're like, all right, lads, you can save this for when I'm off the track. I'm trying to do the best I can here. Now, it depends on context as well, but if you watch it in Netflix, it was ridiculous. All they were trying to do is grind him down, wear him down, get him to make a mistake, and then they can use that against him even more, and then boot him out. Justify why they were doing it. This is the harsh politics of Formula 1. In fact, I'm sure you've no doubt, people get booted out of jobs and they get grinded into a corner, right? Grinded, pushed. The person gets burnt out and all of a sudden they quit. Happens all the time. There's no difference here. There is no difference here. And it's a justification for now, Formula 1 will be different, right? You're not going to have a Formula 1 driver come along and sue a Formula 1 team, all right? Or be reported. Now, at a workplace, yeah, that stuff can happen. But here, no. Let's keep going. You've got that, right? Let's say Red Bull are so ruthless that they'll get rid of their drivers mid-season, start of the season, 3/4 of the way through the season. Okay. We saw that with Liam Lawson here in 2025. Boom, after 2 races, gone. Gone. Really? You're giving him only 2 races to just get up and running? And here's the weird thing, lads. Here's the really weird thing. If they're so ruthless, Red Bull, and they'll get rid of you halfway through a season because of results, let's say, why didn't they get rid of Yuki Tsunoda and Sergio Perez halfway through a season? Now that doesn't add up, does it? Sergio Perez for 2 years in a row, he was very quick at the start of the season, but then at the end, he was nowhere. But if they're that ruthless, well, hey, okay, listen, buddy, you're only as good as your last race. You've had 5 good races, a couple of wins, yeah, Grant done. But for the last 10 races, yeah, you're no good. You're not with it. You're out. Good luck. That would make sense if they were going to do that type of thing, but they didn't. They kept hold of Sergio Perez. Why? Yuki Tsunoda, in 2025, he was absolutely nowhere. And yet they get rid of Liam Lawson after only 2 races, and they give Tsunoda 21 races to do something. Or sorry, 24 races, beg your pardon. Why wouldn't they get rid of them? Okay, maybe that's number one doubt. Number two, if the car is undrivable, as people say they do, and anybody except Max Verstappen can drive it, well, unless Max Verstappen is a one-time-in-a-century alien, and he's the only man that can just master this, and the environment is tuned to one feedback loop. Like, guys, racing history tells us the answer is never option one alone. You've got to have the equipment. You've got to have things on your side. And I'm even backing Max Verstappen on this one. Because even the true aliens, the true of them, Senna, Schumacher, Fangio, they're the real aliens, so to speak, if they were. They didn't need musical chairs. Now let's talk about when the moments really matter with Verstappen. The truth reveals itself when someone does. What I mean? Austria. Norris applies pressure on Verstappen in 2024. Contact. Max Verstappen was getting put under pressure by Lando Norris at the Austrian Grand Prix, and Verstappen decides to hit into him because he couldn't deal with the pressure. Now, I'll explain what I mean in a second. Spain 2025. Max Verstappen is ahead of George Russell. Max Verstappen is told to give the position back. Max Verstappen is freaking out on the radio, angry, which I understand that because like, hey, whoa, hang on a second, why am I giving a place back, right? If he really was clean, right? But I understand where Max is getting pissed off here. Totally understand that. Then the next part comes. Russell's allowed to go through. Verstappen lets him through. Then they come up to the left-hander. I think it's I think it's the fourth corner. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But it's the left-hander. And Verstappen decides to actually physically crash into George Russell. Now, not a massive crash where they went off, but it was enough that it could have been serious damage on the front right corner and the retirements. And all because he was pissed off, and he was like a boxer in the ring, that he was so angry that he got punched that he decided to just punch the ref, punch the audience, punch anybody who's in his way, right? Having a strap, okay? And that's just annoying, man, because that's sad. It really, honestly, lads, it's sad. It's like Machine Gun Kelly spraying everyone in sight. Doesn't matter. Ally are the enemy. And that's the big difference. Now, you can argue with me with Senna, Schumacher. Senna Senna was a bit dirty every now and then. Schumacher, same thing. Here's the difference. Now, by the way, I can't even believe I'm justifying dirty driving. It kind of sounds weird, right? But it only came up because I see the difference between the Senna Schumacher versus the Verstappen dirty. If Verstappen never came along, I wouldn't have thought about it. But it's a different type of dirty. Hear me out. Senna went for gaps, with Prost especially, to go for the championship. He either knew, right, that's it. I'm either going to win, or I'm out, or we're both out. We're done. Schumacher, the same thing. He went for gaps that it was either I go, I win, or I don't. And that's it. Yes, dirty driving? Yes. No question. But they didn't lose their mind. That's the big difference, right? Senna and Schumacher, consciously, before they made the move, they had a thought in their head. Right, I'm gonna dart up the inside of this fella, and let's see what happens. Let's go for it. Okay? That's a conscious move, not a move that comes from panic. Verstappen had either panic or a pissed off, couldn't handle himself, hothead, and he just, okay? Massive difference. Do you get what I mean? All right? Verstappen can be reckless at times now. Not all the time, but he can be reckless at times when the real pressure's on the guy. And I've seen all this in karting and cars. I know every race trick, every race move. I know all the racecraft. I know it all because we all learn it from karting. That's where you really learn it. And you're a young kid. That's all you know. That's what you're growing up on. It's the backbone of racing itself. I know it all in that way. I'm not saying I know everything in the world. No, I'm just saying as in I know all the racecraft. I've seen it all before. That's what I mean. People want Max Verstappen to be the Ayrton Senna and overtake him. They just do. You're seeing it all the time. They want it so bad. But Senna revealed himself in the wet against Prost with no excuses. I mean, he just obliterated the field. He really did. People want Verstappen to be better than Schumacher. But Schumacher dragged shit boxes like Senna into contention and redefine development leadership at times. And people want him to be better than Hamilton. That one, I would definitely say he's more aggressive than Hamilton. And actually, I probably would put him ahead of Hamilton, yes. But Verstappen has only had one, and I mean, by the way, lads, let's not take away anything from him. Verstappen's Brazilian wet Grand Prix from 17th to 1st was unbelievable. But one great race does not put you in the top goats. I'm sorry, it doesn't. You have to have flashes of amazing stuff. I don't know, there's no limit or minimum, right? But not just the one time. Okay? Like Damon Hill went to Jordan, the Formula 1 team. And I think as far as I remember, it was in Belgium. He won in the wet and he won the race. Now, he got a bit of luck on his side too. And it was something... But there's always been a couple of times where a driver just has everything going for him. Everything's in order. Everything's clicking and bang. Right? So if you had 5 or 6 of these amazing performances from Verstappen, well then, ladies and gentlemen, I'll take off my hat and I'll probably delete this episode eventually, okay? All right? And I wouldn't mind. I'd have no problem with that. I'd have no problem with that. But for one that sticks out, he's had some brilliant race wins. Brilliant race wins. Now you can't for like that 2021 last lap showdown, he was brilliant under pressure because he only had the one lap to say, right, that's it. This is it, man. Now, at the same time, lads, he had soft tires on. Hamilton had hard tires on. That's like driving on ice versus driving in the Sahara Desert, right, with the heat, okay? I mean, it would have been very hard for Verstappen to crack under pressure because his car was so much more faster than Hamilton's. You would have had to have been an absolute idiot to mess it up, okay? In fact, actually, Hamilton messed it up more than anything because Hamilton didn't defend the line. He just kept the door wide open. So, well, if you're going to do that, my man, well, then that's on you. And that's the way I say it. In fact, Hamilton messed that up a lot more than Verstappen won that. Now, look, hey, end of the day, Verstappen's got to do the job, keep the pressure on, get through them. That's their job. You know, are you paid to arrange flowers in a flower shop? And what are you expecting? For the boss to come in, oh my God, Bethany, that's amazing! And yet you know it was just a classic job. You're like, yeah, okay, thanks, Dave, but that's my job, right? I didn't do anything special today, did I? Now, maybe you did, but you know what I mean. This is their job. They're getting paid millions of dollars to do it. Look, lads, we're wrapping it up here now today, okay? Let's just summarize here. Let's land this properly. Max Verstappen is no question. He is a brilliant professional. Exceptionally fast. Mentally tough, but he's got his moments where he has his little speed wobbles and panics, okay? Now, look, everybody, including me and every other driver that's ever survived on this planet, lived on this planet, raced. We all have our weaknesses. But they're so obvious and just so stupid that I just don't get it when he knocks into people. And he's deadly in a supportive ecosystem. Deadly. Greatness is forged like in resistance. And until Max Verstappen is forced to share equal power, adapt to a car not shaped around him, coexist with a teammate who isn't disposable, he does not belong anywhere near the GOAT conversation. And I'll even keep it open for you, lads, yet. Because maybe he will come along and show us all up, and especially me. And it's not because he is not talented, but because greatness is not about being protected from adversity. It's about what you do when it arrives. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching.
Walsh running the Irish crane, and look at the move he's making down to the inside.
Moves to the front. What a move from 5th all the way to the lead in lap 1.
Walsh takes win number 2.
Peter Walsh.